I was at home watching it on television, and you was in Charlotte in your bus in the rain. And
there was a lot of rain.
But we still got to remember what Memorial Day was about.
You know, we missed a lot of the stuff before the race and stuff because of the rain at Memorial Day. You know, it's for the troops that let us do what we want to do.
Oh, boy.
Say thank you for all the people that have been in the service or lost a loved one in the service. And, you know, you say, without those people, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. So it's just a big thank you. And Charlotte's always been good. NASCAR has been good at looking and saying, thank you, all you troops, for doing what you do so that we can play around and do what we want to do.
It's great for that, but then the elements of the race probably is as bad as we've seen. One time in 1969, we flew to Riverside to race, rained out, come back home, flew back on Friday. They called it off on Saturday to come back home because it was working on a new Ford, and then went back 3 weeks delayed. But this was all hanging out and starting races and stopping races. And
yeah, but, you know, after all of that, the way the track got washed away and, you know, all the rubber and stuff off of it, it's the first time I can remember a race at Charlotte where they used the whole racetrack. You know, most of the time they would start around the bottom and eventually somebody's going to the top, but the middle of the track's hardly ever used. This time they could run 3 abreast, so it wound up being probably one of the best 600s I've ever seen, or best races at Charlotte, because they could run all over the racetrack.
And there's no question about it. Now, I picked it up at home watching it, you know, and it's just so sad that both of our cars, I guess, caught a lug nut and busted radiators within 10 laps of each other. And I think the 43 was a pretty decent car for as long as he got to run, you know. And like you said, there was no one groove for a given car, and there's no question the best car was the 12 car
in the whole race.
In the whole race,
we don't really know how good the 43 would have been. See, the 43 had to start back of the field,
exactly,
and he worked his way up pretty quick to 11th or 12th, and then first thing you know, we're back in the back. He works his way back up, but then we had trouble. So we really don't know how good he could have been, because if you'll remember the race, there was 3 or 4 cars got out front. The 4 car did one time.
The 19 did one time.
And they led the race and looked like a winner. But the 12 car was just sitting there waiting on all of it. He ran right with them. But then once the 4 car and the 19 car, once they got back in the crowd, that's as far as they went.
Yeah, they were just another car like the rest.
Just another car. So but we don't know if the 43 could have got up front, if he could have done that too. So, but anyhow, it wound up, there was somebody racing somebody all day long. And the track let them do that. And they didn't have to follow each other. You go in the corner and the guy goes low, you just go high. And most of the time over there, if they go in low, you got to go in and follow them. But again, the track allowed the drivers and the cars to do what we want to see them do, which is race with each other.
But the point you're making is the drivers could put their car in fresh air without really following a car, and these cars love fresh air.
Yeah.
And
that's what I was talking about. The guys, when they get out front, they look like world beaters, but when they get back in the crowd, but this race was a little bit different. They could race in the crowd
exactly.
a little better than what they usually do.
And what's really getting so critical, Richard, and I don't particularly like it, but we can't help it, is qualifying was rained out. You had to pick your pit according to where you finished at Darlington, and I don't know all the formula on it. And the 43 picked behind a car that he thought would be good. He had to back up one time, lost a bunch of positions. But pit road is just about more exciting than or more challenging than what takes place out on the racetrack.
Very, very crisp, because you look at the standpoint, you run on the racetrack, it takes you a long time to make up a second.
Oh, boy.
You lose a second in the pits, that guy's already in the corner down there when you're coming off the other corner.
And
so,
it's really, really putting a lot of pressure on the pit crews. And
Well, it doesn't only put it on the crew; it puts it on the driver to get in
exactly,
as hard
yeah.
as he can to get and not break the rule and get out without going over the speed limit. That's one of the reasons why I've always and still holler at NASCAR for not having like everybody else in racing, all the big teams, USAC, no matter what.
Formula One and everything.
Everybody has got a cutoff deal, so they can't speed.
Yeah.
Well, NASCAR still lets them speed, or they still catch people speeding, and that screws up everything. Otherwise, everybody comes in running exactly the same speed, and they leave running exactly the same speed. So then that makes the stop that much more critical, because getting in and getting out is going to be the same for everybody. But the way it is now, sometimes they cheat it a little bit, and sometimes the driver is so conscious of it, he's not getting out quite as good as he really could. So that kind of messes up things too.
Yeah, but we're getting back when you raced. There was no pit road speed,
Yeah.
but we didn't think about going over the wall, or I didn't, and I'm sure the crew didn't. That cars coming by you at 150, 60, 70, 80, 190 mile an hour, at Talladega and Daytona, but that was okay. But they bunch them up now too, Richard, and when they come off a pit road, they look like they tied together.
I know. Well, that one time I seen a bunch of them took off, and there was 4 abreast going down pit road.
Boy.
You mean?
And they hit.
They run into each
yeah.
other.
And
A couple of them had to come back in and make sure they got the fenders
But we
off.
got to give credit to this body too,
Oh, yeah.
compared to the metal bodies that we used to run. They're a lot tougher and
Well, you see these cars, they hit each other from time to time.
don't affect them.
They couldn't or even get into the wall. And with a metal car,
Yeah.
they'd have to be making pit stops.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just keep on trucking.
But
the bodies make the drivers a little more careless. They can get by with things that they couldn't get by with a steel body.
Yeah, and I believe Noah brought up to you not long ago that they've made the front too strong where the drivers don't mind hitting,
Yeah.
and the rear too weak, and that takes them out. But all in all, it was a lot of, the rain brought a lot of decision making on a lot of people, crew chiefs and crews
Well,
and
you never could
drivers, promoters.
You never could figure the strategy
No.
for the race, because you just run along, everything looks good, and all of a sudden it starts raining, and you made your pit stop at the wrong time. In fact, the 43 car stopped one time, and just as he went out, they had a caution flag. But he was able to make up the deal.
The lap, yes.
Yeah, but still, yet he was 59 laps behind, But and they just continued to run the race.
But, they got it off, and like we always say, they had a winner, and they got another race this Sunday, and it's supposed to be hot and slick, and there'll be another element to fight.
Completely different kind of racetrack.
Yeah.
It's a big short track, really.
Okay.
It's what it winds up being, and then it's going to be hot and slick, and it's going to be a completely different kind of race than what we had at Charlotte.
Looking forward to seeing it. Planning on being there, and I know you are too. So we'll talk again next Monday.